So to quote possibly the best song to come out of the 1980s, you know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby. Anyway, let's get this over with. When there's F1 mega drama, it's great for content creators because ka-ching, easy clicks, but it also becomes a total mare down in the comments section. Because when something happens like what happened at Monza yesterday, people will go onto YouTube to see what the personalities of the F1 YouTuber sphere think of that particular thing, and will click on the videos having already made their decision as to who was at fault, and by golly, that's a hill they'll die on. So when someone says the opposite to that conclusion they've already made their mind up about, or God forbid sees it from both sides and says they're both to blame for a crash, then that person gets called biased. So it makes you wonder why anyone on YouTube bothers with this sort of content, to be honest, because you're only ever going to get one side of the mob to overreact. It's just an opinion, man. Now, I don't think anyone was expecting to see Max's car mounting Lewis like it was an actual Red Bull mounting a cow, but it happened anyway, and like I said in the opening few paragraphs, people have made their mind up as to who was at fault. Max fans said it was Lewis to blame. Lewis fans said it was Max trying to fire his way into a gap that barely existed. And if you know me, you'll know that I'm involved in virtual motorsport, and if you don't, well, I'm a sim racer as well as a talking cue ball. And in all of the leagues I've been involved in, mainly in R-Factor 2, those leagues have a rule that says that when your front axle overlaps with the leading driver's rear axle, you are classed as being alongside, and it is the responsibility of the driver ahead to leave enough space for the chasing car to fit into the gap that's left, if that makes any sense. It also has to be said that the car ahead doesn't necessarily have to give way, but it's just to leave enough room at that point for that car to fit in. But like some of you will be quick to point out, this is real life. This isn't sim racing. This isn't a video game, and so on. And in real life, the FIA's rules say that in this instance, the front wing has to be alongside the overtakee's front axle, or as the FIA deems it, substantially alongside. But in the FIA's own words, Max's car at no point during the tussle gets any further forward than just behind the front wheel of Lewis's, which, to the letter of the rulebook, is not substantially alongside, as they call it. Flashback to Silverstone when Lewis said, "I was alongside," but he was like that, rather than that. They also write that car number 33, Max, was not at all alongside 44, Hamilton, until significantly into the entry of turn 1, although maybe that should read turn 2. Now Lewis has given barely enough room, and in this instance, and with the benefit of hindsight, Max should have yielded or dived across the escape road, because with that sharp of a left-hander coming up, doing what he was doing was just begging for contact. I mean, sure, Lewis could have left more room, but if you see the opening lap, Lewis just did to Max what Max did to Lewis, and at the second chicane, Lewis cut it to avoid contact. I mean, they did bang wheels, but Lewis just went, nope, straight across the chicane. And while Lewis could have left maybe a few extra inches of room, it was enough, but barely enough. I mean, he was borderline. Max went for a hole that was only ever going to disappear by the time he was there, and then the contact happened, and that sausage curb on the inside probably didn't help things either. Again, this is what I saw, but like I posted in the community tab last night, these videos are only ever going to anger one side, the other, or both. It was a sim racer move, and like I tweeted last night, I'm talking about the incident without a leg to stand on here because I did virtually the exact same thing at Indianapolis last week. But like at Silverstone, it took two to tango and they collided for the second time this year. And like at Silverstone, the stewards deemed one party to be predominantly at fault. Which doesn't mean it was all on Max. It means Lewis had a part to play in this as well, with the driver names reversed in the Silverstone crash. But the way I see it, Max tried to lob it into a gap that was only ever going to get smaller and is, like the stewards determined, predominantly at fault. The 3-place penalty is a bit harsh, but if they gave a penalty to Lewis for being predominantly at fault for Silverstone, then consistency says that they're going to have to do something for Max here. But it is tricky to call, and like I said after Silverstone, I'd love to have a segment on the F1 YouTube channel or something where the stewards do a "this is why" type of thing, where they talk about how they came to the conclusions they came to. It probably won't douse the Twitter dumpster fires, but, you know, I'd watch it. Was Max just being far too aggressive after the botched pit stop and driving well within the red mist? Or was he just firing it in expecting Lewis to just get out of his way, you know, Senna style? Yeah, answers on a postcard. But just to sum up all of the analysis here, it takes two to tango. I'm neither fully blaming one, or am I fully blaming the other. At most, it was a racing incident. So it means that Max gets a 3-place grid penalty for Russia, and people are complaining that Lewis got 10 seconds and Max gets that. Because you can't give a car a time penalty if it's no longer in the race. And all those going on about Max not checking on Lewis afterwards. I mean, Max does look at Lewis's car and notices that Lewis is spinning the rear wheels up to try and get out. Walking over to a car that's spinning its rears in the gravel with another car on top of it isn't exactly my idea of fun either. But it was scary seeing that wheel basically on top of Lewis's head. I mean, yeah, people still whine about the halo, but it's done its job. And, you know, it just seems weird because it was a slow speed accident, at least compared to the previous one. Would have been like something out of Super Mario if that thing wasn't there, and I'm pretty certain there were tyre marbles on Lewis's helmet. Insert joke about skid marks on a purple helmet here. Nice. But in happier news, Ricciardo won his first race since 2018, and while McLaren seems to have been the best of the rest for a time, they finally take their first win since Jenson Button in 2012, and their first 1-2 since Hamilton led Button to the line at Canada in 2010. Put simply, that's a long-ass time without a 1-2. It's a long-ass time without a win either. But does it mean that Ricciardo is back? Hard to say. I mean, we'll have to look at Russia, as that McLaren looked rapid, trimmed out for top speed. If Ricciardo goes back to being beaten by Norris in qualifying the remaining races, this will just look like a flash in the pan, and it will definitely be a confidence boost, and I do have a soft spot for McLaren because of the Hakkinen and Coulthard years. In 2022, if they get the regulations right, it'll be great to see them back up on the podium, and if Williams can join them as well, that'll be even better, although I'm not holding my breath. But that's not to say that Ricciardo didn't do a good job. He started second, he got past Max into the first chicane and kept it ahead. And with Max and Lewis out of the picture, he and... oh, you f***er. But that's not to say Ricciardo didn't do a good job. He started in second, got past Max into the first chicane and kept it ahead. And with Max and Lewis out of the picture, he and Norris were just able to cruise to the end ahead of Perez, who was later penalised, and Bottas filled out the podium after going from P45 to P1 to P20 to P3. So next up is Russia, a track that suits the Mercs, but Red Bull will also be within a shout due to their superior rear downforce. Should be another good fight provided everybody stays on the track, and there are talks that Max might do what Bottas did in taking the engine and gearbox penalties now and start from the back, because the Red Bull should have no issues coming through the field at Sochi, but we'll need to wait a couple of weeks before we see that, if it happens. And more points for Russell, so that's always good. It was a mad weekend for sport in general because Warsaw scored 3 goals in one game, which is just... and the Blue Jays put 22 past Baltimore. You had Emma Raducanu winning the Women's US Open, Djokovic got mullered in the Men's US Open final, Max mounts Lewis, and Ronaldo scores 2 goals for United against Newcastle. So yeah, mad weekend. And not in the consumption of alcohol kind of mad weekend. So all that's left to do now is to get you lovely lot to leave your comments down in the comment submission area and try to keep it civil, unlike these absolute cum trumpets on Twitter. And if you think I've made some good points, then give the video a thumb up, and for more like this, then get the subscription icon clicked, and also click on the bell icon so you never miss out on a future video. Big thanks as always go out to the good folk of Patreon for their continued support, and if you want to join them or just join in the Discord natter, I'll leave all relevant links down in the description box for you. So until next time, I've been AdmiralLaWind. Have a great day wherever you live in the world. I'll see you all again soon for another video. So until then, goodbye.